So if you made it this far, congratulations. This is part 6 of why we need to stop calling ourselves black, and we need to address that anybody who considers themselves white is agreeing to racism. And yeah, let's get into it. So if you watch my other videos, I got more into like American history, then I went into white history, and then native, indigenous, and black history. But now I'm about to show you why all of that matters. So pay attention to the other things because the timeline matters and the words matter, okay? Try to stick with me. But I'm gonna try to squeeze all of this in because it's a lot of shit. Now let's start talking about massacres, because if you go back and you look into before so this is going to be everything after the Civil War. But if you go back and look at everything before the Civil War, you'll see how everything looks the exact same. The exact same. The only thing they did was make us start fighting for our rights and thinking that the war was over. That's the only thing. We're the only ones who stopped fighting a war. They continued. They just used a different strategy, which was law. They start creating laws and legal shit because fighting us head on was not working in their favor. They needed to become more organized because they were dealing with 5 civilized tribes who had very great military strategies that they could not keep up with. So the best approach for them was to try to go nonviolent and go legal. That was the best way to get us completely off our land and make us stop fighting physically. Let's get it. So for everybody who be trying to come at people for which political party they on, oh, how could you support Democrats? How could you support Republicans? I'm gonna show you why y'all supporting the same exact thing. Democrats, I'm gonna show you what Democrats have done for you in the history, and then you come back and talk. So let's start with the Appaloosa massacre in 1868. Now the Appaloosa massacre was, of course, political. It was in Louisiana. Now this was when they were trying to prevent black people from voting. So a mob had went up to this place, started some hectic stuff. I think they ended up killing somebody who was trying to help the black vote, get in. They ended up killing that person, and then that started a whole bunch of chaos. Now, when the black people armed themselves and came ready for the fight, they ended up arresting about 27 black men from that fight to disarm them. They disarmed them, placed them in prison, where they allowed the mobs to come there and execute them. All 27 of them got executed from the jail. So while y'all be waiting for the justice system to work for you, understand that they used to arrest us, let the killers into the jail, and then, just like straight up execution style. Now, after this happened, they went on a 2-week purge, killing pretty much any black Republican, any black person, but mostly black Republicans or anybody that was Republican, which lets you know that the people doing the killing were Democrats. Now, you can look this up. I'm not saying this to start none, and I ain't trying to be funny. They call them a group of white supremacist Democrats, the white racist Democratic Party. This is what they went by proudly. So, with no shame in their game, so I'm gonna honor them by calling them what they were, the white racist Democratic Party. And in the end, they killed about 300 black people, and I think 400 altogether. They were successful by removing the Republicans from the political lead and placing a white supremacist Democrat in office, which was their goal. So to get white racist Democrats in and get black Republicans out, even though this was right after slavery. Let's focus. So now let's dive into the Colfax Massacre of 1873. Don't quote. 1873. I'm going to say it confidently. The Colfax Massacre of 1873, which was again in Louisiana. Now, this was political as well. Coincidentally, maybe, it's another attack by the white supremacist Democrats. So at this time, the Republicans and the Democrats were successful. And the black Republicans were like, man, we know these white Democrats about to cut up. So they went to the courthouse to protect, or to do a peaceful, here we go, trying to be peaceful, do a peaceful little thing at the courthouse, in which the white Democrats came like, baby, we don't do peaceful. So yeah, the white Democrats did what they do best, which was decided to forcefully start removing these black people from the courthouse. Yes, from the courthouse. The last one, they removed us from the jail. Now they're taking it to the courthouse. So they ended up with a small cannon and some rifles. They ended up blowing it up, setting fire to it, and ripping these men out. Any man who surrendered or fled was hunted down and killed in cold blood. The only outcome for those people was going to be death, period, unfortunately. I think this resulted in about 150 men being killed. Of course, the numbers probably vary because they always tone it down to not look as barbaric as they are. But about 150 men were killed for political reasons alone, and massacre wreaked throughout the place. They did end up arresting about 100 white men after this under the Enforcement Act, I believe, of 1870. Don't quote me on that one. But because of the Enforcement Act, which was later taken away because they was like, it's unconstitutional to protect people for color, even though we have the non-hate bill, which was strictly to protect Asians during COVID. But let's stay focused. All right, fast forward. Let's get into the Thibodeau Massacre, again in Louisiana, of 1887. Yeah, Thibodeau Massacre of 1887. Now, this was a group of sharecroppers, farmers, and black workers who ended up going on strike because the work conditions looked a little too much like slavery. They were getting paid unfair wages, and it was pushing them into more debt. Now, this is important because of debt, they would be forced to work longer terms, unpaid, right? This was looking like slavery, which now looks like prison. But let's stay focused. So I believe this started before Thibodeau. So the actual strike started outside of Thibodeau. When they went on strike, they ended up pushing these people. So this is where it all works together. The landlords started evicting the black residents who were striking, pushing them into Thibodeau. Once they pushed them into Thibodeau, they locked them in there. Locked them in there. What do you think happened after that? All hell broke loose. So now when they locked them in Thibodeau, they ended up going door to door, pulling women and children out, execution style, killing them on point. They ended up killing all of the strikers and things like that. Well, I don't think all died, but massacre. You know what a massacre is. Now this massacre, it was one of the shorter ones. I think it ranged only about like 3 hours, like 2 to 3 hours. But nonetheless, they did a lot of damage in the meantime, which is another story of a black community being destroyed, taken over, and eliminated. Now remember, we were only supposed to be about, not that many of Africans supposedly came up, like 3,800,000 came from Africa. Now, with each of these massacres, they're killing off like 300 of us. Think about how many people they supposedly killed during slavery. So keep up, because this is all to prove that we were already here, and the fight is to take the land from us. This is all political stuff. This is not race. Now, they invented race so that we would just think, treat me fair as a black person. But this is deeper than that, y'all. This is about eliminating an indigenous race, taking the land, which is why all of these things ended up with some type of political taking or land taking. Pay attention. I'm not making it up. I'm not trying to prove a point. I'm just speaking history. All right, now let's fast forward to the Wilmington insurrection of 1898. 1890. Okay, so before this massacre, Wilmington was actually one of the largest cities in North Carolina. It also was a hub for the black middle class. So they had black police officers. They had black everything. It was a thriving black community. Now, the thing that pissed the white Democrats off this time was that they had a coalition with the whites. So they had a biracial coalition going on with the Republican Party. Here you go again, another time that the Democrats was not fucking with us. I'm not saying being Republican. I'm not saying being Democrat, but understand the history of who you even be voting for and preaching for, because Democrats ain't never fucked with us, ever. Now with this massacre, it all riled up because a biracial person was elected, a biracial Republican was elected. The white Democrats, or what they call the white supremacist leaders of the Democrat Party, said hell no to that, and they ended up wreaking havoc on this town, pushing these people out of their town, taking their land, taking over. And when they pushed the biracial leader out, they were able to place again another white supremacist Democrat at the head of the political party. Now, this ended up killing about hundreds of black people and pushing thousands of them fleeing from their homes, allowing white people to take over their businesses. And they burned down, this is another big thing, they burned down newspapers, because newspapers have, newsstands and stuff have real facts, real history embedded in them. So they needed to burn this shit down historically for reasons, because they have things like obituaries, which would mark who people really were, which would mark truths that they're trying to hide, okay? So they took up this stuff, and again, this is why they started sundown towns, because of the fear of black people coming back to reclaim what was theirs. It's not really about race, y'all. This is why we gotta eliminate race. If we eliminate race, we're gonna see shit so much more clear. Now, I'm gonna end on this, and I'm gonna probably have to do another part because